Those who saw what happened really seem to be unanimous in telling us that they believe that it was a voluntary act. They believe that intentionally the bus rammed into this daycare. This is not something that police are confirming to us, though they have arrested the driver. They are trying to.
So it is obviously very sad news to report that unfortunately two children and six more have been injured in this grave accident. Now, at this point, it's not been confirmed 100% that it's been intentional, but as you heard in the little clip of a news report that I showed just a moment ago, witnesses apparently saw that the driver did intentionally drive into the daycare center. This is a daycare center in Laval, so this is not too far from where I live. For those of you who don't know, Laval is north of Montreal, it's just north. So basically, Laval and Montreal are both islands, and Laval is the island north of Montreal. So it's literally a hop, skip, and uh, hop, skip, and a jump, I should say. I apologize. Away from my city, my hometown. So it's always horrible news to hear when life is taken, whether it's accidentally or intentionally, especially the life of a child. So my condolences obviously go out to the families of those who were injured or passed away in this incident, and I do hope that they find out what happened. And of course, I hope that this was not intentional but merely an accident. I hope, because obviously it's never good news when you hear that somebody intentionally took the life of a child or children. And if it is intentional in this case, the individual probably wanted to do a lot more damage. And it is a public bus that was used in this incident. So the driver was a civil servant for the city of Laval. So it just goes to show that anybody can be involved in these kinds of incidents. And again, I'm hoping that it was just an accident, and that maybe, he had an episode of diabetes sometimes does this kind of stuff where you go blank and lose control of yourself. Epilepsy does that sometimes. So I'm hoping that it was purely an accident due to medical reasons that may have not been diagnosed, etc. So I'm hoping, but obviously at this point, there's no way to know for sure what happened. It's all speculation and all allegations at this point. But obviously, once I hear more news about this incident and can report further details, I will do so. But for now, we're hoping that the kids that are in the hospital do get better and are returned. In fact, it's been reported that at least two of the kids that were alive but injured have returned to their homes and their families. And again, my condolences go out to all the individuals involved in this incident. And I hope that the individuals still in the hospital have a speedy and full recovery.
These pictures from the other scene late last night at the end of that terrifying day. The bus pulled out of the daycare building and towed away from the scene. The driver is in police custody now. He faces multiple charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder. We're going to have all the information we have on him in just a few minutes. Story. Hillary, the suspect, the investigation, where are we with that today?
Well, Heather, we know that a psychiatric evaluation has now been ordered, so that will take place, as you say, next to court appearance not expected until the 17th of this month. But 51-year-old Pierre-Ny Saint-Amand is facing a number of charges here, including 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and 4 counts of assault causing bodily harm. That being the 51-year-old right there on your screen who you're looking at. We know that he has worked for the Transit Authority in Laval for 10 years. We understand that no prior incidents on his record. But when we take a look at some of those other details as well, of course, we know that yesterday he did make a court appearance, but that was via video link from his hospital bed. We know that one of the police officers who was at his bedside reported during that court appearance that he had been struck by this 51-year-old man. We know the
Story. Hillary, the suspect,
So as you guys heard in that clip, the suspect is in the hospital. He did seem to attack one of the police officers that were there guarding him, and they had to pause. And he will go and get a psychiatric evaluation. He has been formally charged. Now, in the rest of the video, they do speak to a couple other people. One of them is a police officer. To kind of see what to do next, where the investigation will lead, and of course he did indicate that they do have to prove that it wasn't just a mere accident. And in the rest of the video they did show that although the bus that the driver was using, so Pierre Ni Saint-Amand, the 151 in Laval, does run in the area, there's no reason for that bus to be in that specific, like that close to that building, right? So he had to reroute in order to get to that daycare center. That daycare center is in the end of a private route and a private section of that part of the city. So it's not something that would normally like be part of the bus routes. So he had to go out of his way to end up there. So obviously they will have to eliminate other things, like potentially did he have, brake failure? Was he told by, the STL, the Société de Transport de Laval, to reroute in that area and something happened? The road was slippery or something. Who knows, right? So they do have to eliminate other things that could make sense, right? Now, obviously, for those of you who don't know, when you take public transportation, a lot of times the buses do get told by the dispatch that they have to reroute, right? They have to go at a different place than they normally would. But that is something that would be announced, that would be logged, and there would be a justifiable reason for it, right? Too much traffic, maybe there's construction, the route is blocked because of an accident, something happened, right? There has to be a justifiable reason, and it has to be announced to the driver by dispatch. It's not necessarily something that they can just do on their own discretion. And if they do decide, they do have to tell the dispatcher, they have to call in and say, hey, I'm going over here because of XYZ reason, right? So there has to be a log as to why the bus did not go at their normal bus route at that particular location, right? So they do suspect that this was most likely intentional, but they do, of course, like in the US and many other countries, you're innocent until proven guilty. So they do have to prove that this was intentional and not just a mere accident. And even if it was a mere accident, some of the charges still can stick to the person, or there could be other different kinds of charges that he would have to face in court, even if they prove that it was unintentional. I don't know if manslaughter is the right term here in Quebec, because obviously for us here in Quebec, we have a very different legal system than the rest of Canada. We follow what's called the more Roman law or French law. It's the terminology, the organization is very different. So maybe there's not manslaughter in that term, but there's a manslaughter like type of charge that could be laid if they find that no, it wasn't intentional, but there could have been things that he could have done differently, type of laws, right? So that's basically what manslaughter tends to be, right? You didn't intend, you didn't go out of your way, but there's something in your behavior, there's something that you could have done differently to have prevented the outcome, right? So maybe there's something similar in Quebec law to this, if it's not flat out called manslaughter. But again, guys, I'm not a lawyer, and that's the other thing. I'm just showing you guys this as, legal information and not legal advice. This is just, a sad, tragic event that has occurred. Like I said, not too far from where I live. Laval isn't, a city that's like 5 hours away or 10 hours away. At most, it's a 20-minute drive from where I live, right? So this is close to me. And, even though I wasn't personally impacted, thankfully. I was not injured. None of my family was involved, thankfully. But it's still sad that these children were involved and that two have lost their lives to this incident. And I did feel like it was important for me to talk about this event, um, and really share what could happen. Now, in the rest of the video, they also talk about, the psychiatric help to, in particular, to the children that are involved in them, because this is obviously a daycare center, and as resilient as children are at this age. These are kids that are in daycare center, right? So they're between anywhere from a year old, let's say, to 5 or 6 years old, right? So they're not quite going to elementary school, but they're out of the house as well. So at this age, they understand a certain amount of things, but not necessarily everything, right? So they might not be able to process this. And the government and the media has made it very clear that if any of the families feel that they need to take advantage of getting some kind of psychiatric help, to please feel free to use those services, because you don't really know how a child is going to process that information, right? For some of these kids, they might have witnessed a friend of theirs pass away and not realize that that's what happened, right? Some of them might have, and that makes it worse for them, maybe. Who knows, right? I'm obviously not in the medical field, so I can't, uh, you know, give a diagnosis on that level. But I imagine that the kids have felt a certain kind of way because of this event. And again, obviously, my condolences go out to the family and friends of the victims that have been impacted by this incident. So obviously, there's a whole impact to the community as well, because these are, you know, so as I was saying, this even though it's a daycare center, we tend to forget that daycare centers tend to be, especially for the children, the center of their life, right? They go to meet their friends, they play, they might be learning things as well, depending on the daycare, right? So this is their whole life that now is being uprooted, right? Who knows how long this investigation might take? It might take a few days, a few weeks. Who knows when they can go back to the building? And if they do go back, what kind of experience will that be for the kids involved and for the daycare workers as well? Because obviously they were impacted by this as well. So some of the daycare workers might decide, you know what, I don't want to go back to this. If this is my working conditions already, many daycare center employees are saying we're understaffed, underpaid, underappreciated, and overworked. And if on top of this, there's a risk that a random bus driver goes into the building, why would I want to do this job, right? It's a difficult position to be in. So, of course, for the workers, it's going to be especially important because they are conscious of what happened, and they're basically to some degree responsible for these kids as well. When this event occurred, they obviously had to intervene and make sure, are all the kids okay? Where are they? Do we have a head count, et cetera, et cetera? And to witness the unaliving of two children, I can imagine that's not an easy thing to for them to go through. So I do hope that they too take the offer of getting psychiatric help during this event. They certainly would need it. This is something. I witnessed my father passing away. Now, in his case, it was expected. He, is older. It's of natural causes, so don't worry. Um, it was definitely expected. But even that, even in a safe environment where you know what's going on, it's the end of their life, it's still like I can still see his last moments. It's something that I still play with around in my head and, replay it over and over again. So I can't imagine what it would be like to go through this kind of incident and you witnessing a child passing away. It's definitely not a fun experience. So hopefully, like I said, everybody involved gets the help that they need and they get back onto their feet as quickly as possible. So as soon as I get more information about this incident, guys, I will update you and let you know what's going on. But obviously, I'm like most people dependent on what the media is telling me, and obviously, they're not getting everything because obviously the police still has to do their investigation. It still has to go to court, etc. And in Quebec, like most of Canada, unlike in the U.S., court is not open to the public. I can't go to Court TV Quebec and see the trial going on. It's not something that happens here in Canada, uh, in part due to the respect of privacy in general, especially if there are minors involved, like this case there is, right? Children do have the right to privacy. Um, and even for the adult, we want to put as much emphasis that if they're found to be innocent, that they can get back into society as quickly as possible with minimal impact. But obviously, these days with YouTube and social media and all this, it may not be, they may not be as protective of a system as we would like to think it is. And part of it too is to make sure that the accused gets as much as a fair trial, because we all know that, look, in the court of public opinion, you can be very, very guilty and still be innocent as far as the court of law is concerned. And there have been people that have been found guilty because of what has been said about them in public. So I can kind of understand why the Canadian government does not want to have, oh yeah, let's put everything on social media, let's air it all out, let's have court TV and all that stuff. Like, you want as much as possible for the accused to have a fair chance at getting a fair trial as much as possible. Now, obviously, in this case, everything seems to show that this person is guilty, but we'll see how things go. So as you see here, I've given a little bit of details about the suspect. I don't want to give him too much attention, just because, one, if it is intentional and he did decide to go out and do this, I certainly don't think people like that should be made famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it. It sounds like it might have been a mixture of being intentional, but intentional due to a mental break in his mind. Now, don't get me wrong, people. I don't think that mental illness is an excuse to liberate somebody from being punished. 99.9% of people who have mental illnesses are self aware. They know that they're doing something wrong. They can accept that they need to be punished. But we do also have to understand that mental illness does occur and it does impact the kind of behavior that we can expect from other people. And consequently, if you believe that you're suffering from some kind of mental illness, or you see a loved one that has a mental break or is going through something, please get them the help that they need, because in many cases, incidences like this may be preventable if you simply get them the help that they need to have, right? Obviously, it's preferable that you don't force them. There are some cases where that might be required, where in cases like this, where the person might be putting themselves and or other people in danger, you may need to get mandatory intervention here involved. Not always, but definitely, guys, if you suspect that somebody needs medical attention, intervention of some kind, please be sure to provide that for them. Even if it's just, hey, you know what, call somebody. There's these days, there's, even though sometimes getting a good psychiatrist might not be affordable, there is help out there. There are people that are willing to take time to listen. Even though I'm not particularly religious, I'm more agnostic. If you need to go to a pastor or a priest, or your local religious high person, whatever the case might be, to get help, please do so. So please, guys, like I said, I know I've repeated it, get the help that you need for yourself or other people. Don't be so obtuse about yourself and your life that you deny getting the help that you need. You don't have to announce it to everybody. I get that a lot of us, including myself, prefer to keep our issues, our problems, whatever we're going through, personal and don't necessarily want to air it, especially not on something like YouTube or social media in general. I understand there's some things that we all would rather keep it to ourselves and really keep it to a minimum. I don't think there's any wrong. Now, if you want to go out there and air your dirty laundry, by all means, that's your choice. But I definitely wouldn't do that for myself. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't get help or shouldn't go to somebody to say, "Hey, I need something here. I'm going through something that is beyond my capacity right now." So let me know, guys, what your thoughts are on this particular incident. Like I said, I'll try my best to keep you guys up to date as far as this incident is concerned. But obviously, like everybody, I'm waiting for the police reports, for the trial to start and to really take place. As I said earlier, trials here in Canada are not a public affair, so it's not something I can just walk into and witness myself, unfortunately. So I kind of have to wait for the media and the police, etc., to make whatever statements they can in a public format to give you guys updates. So it might take me a week, it might take me a month, might take me a year to update the situation. So I really, at this point, I'm in the mercies of the media, as they say. So, anyways, like I said, guys, if you have any thoughts or opinions on the matter, please let me know in the comments section. Again, remain respectful in your commentary, guys. I don't mind having discussions about hot topics, but let's just keep it respectful, guys, okay? Have a good one.